to It's All About Money with your host, Bill Tatro.
Okay, let's take a look. And as I said, yesterday was Labor Day. And, of course, we had the big news on Friday, which was zero as far as the number of jobs that have been created. And, of course, we just got some recent news. I find it fascinating when you get the head of GE is the assistant to Barack Obama, and I say assistant, I'm talking about he's his mentor for creating jobs in the United States, and General Electric announces that they're going to send their X-ray department, the manufacturer of X-ray machines, over to China. Well, we got another announcement today. I'd like to see how the president would address this. PricewaterhouseCoopers, big accounting firm, right, has just announced they're going to hire 15,000 graduates. Yes, I think that's fantastic. And it's over the next 5 years. What do you think? L.A., maybe Chicago, Philadelphia, Phoenix, maybe some of the smaller cities, like we're going to get into, maybe couple up in Rhode Island, and maybe some down in, Mississippi, like that. Well, don't hold your breath, because PricewaterhouseCoopers is kind of getting into the fray. They're going to hire 15,000 graduates over the next 5 years in China and Hong Kong. Yep. On a week where we've just announced zero jobs last week, where we've got the president coming on, and we've got the Republicans in their debate. We have PricewaterhouseCoopers, right? That's what it used to be the Big Eight. Now I think it's the Big Six, down to the Big Three or Big Two, whatever it is. They are going to have, they're going to have auditors over there, and as they should, because over the last, several months, we've seen dozens and dozens of small Chinese entities, which are listed on the New York Stock Exchange over here, come under tremendous fire. Why? And we've talked about it several times on this program, because many of them are frauds. Yep, many of them are frauds. And the fraud allegations have been brought forth by short sellers, but the reality is that they have triggered a lot of lawsuits, a lot of market value has declined, and what we're seeing is these particular companies just don't pass muster and have got into real deep trouble. Yet we still continue to watch guys market these, and maybe PricewaterhouseCoopers, by hiring people over there, can kind of nip this in the bud. But I thought that was very, very ironic. When we take a look also at, when I said earlier, the big problem right now as far as employment is there's a bigger story, because when you take a look at people who are 55 years and older, the unemployment rate is right now is at about 6.6%. Hasn't topped 7.5% since the recession began. So who's out of work? Okay, where's the unemployment rate? Well, if you look at teenagers, it's 25.4%. If you look at workers from age 20 to 24, these are people primarily have maybe just got out of high school or just got out of college, can't find a job, okay? Cannot find a job. Unemployment rate for them is 14.8%. Now, what does this do when you basically shut off a generation from work? Let's take a look at what's going on over in Spain. Over 20% unemployment over there, with the majority of it people under 30 years old. Very interesting. I do a lot of historical reading, obviously, as you know, and I was watching some shows over the weekend on Napoleon and how every year during the Napoleonic Wars he would call up young men. He started at 17. They would start at 17. They would call them up, and then it got down to 15. Then it got down to 14, and finally at the end he was calling them up. They were 13 years old. That was his army. Okay, and he just continued to run through men. But what's interesting is that the economy still continued to move, and the economy still continued to go forward. Why? Because there were certain jobs that had to be done, there were certain businesses that had to be run, but there was too many people to fill all those jobs. And so what did Napoleon do? He put him in military service, and he put him at war. Okay, he knew he was going to lose a lot of them, but he knew that if he could dominate, then there was benefits to the country by dominating and taking over all of Europe. But what we see now is, as we go to the Middle East, let's take a look at Egypt. Let's take a look at some of these countries over there in the Middle East, and also the other European countries that have high unemployment. And the high unemployment is with young people. Young people, who may have a family trying to serve or survive with, and they can't get a job, they can't feed their family. And so what happens, they all kind of go to a different movement, and they'll go towards the military, one way or the other, military with the government or military anti-military, which would be terrorists, etc. So you see, when there's recruiting out there, that is another one of the byproducts of having no jobs, having no labor. That's one of the problems. Now, they did an analysis of in Inc./Woman Trend. They did an analysis of this particular group. And this is the teenagers and people who are under 30 years old, said more than a quarter, 27%, are delaying going back to school or getting more training. 28% are delaying saving for retirement. More than 1 out of 5, that's 23%, are delaying starting a family, and 18% are putting off getting married. Now, they also, this is, I thought, most fascinating, nearly half say they're not going to buy a house. 44% say they're going to delay in buying a house. And so what you've got is, as we move closer and closer to the year 2016, which I think is, as most of the waves and most of the different turns are pointing us to as absolute bottom of the market, of all the markets, 2016, and it's going to be as they say, I should say, it's going to be hell to pay between now and then. But that's ultimately the bottom. But when we get to 2016, Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, in his book Prophecy, picks out 2016 as one of the ultimate years. Why? Because at that age, the baby boomers hit 70 when they have to start taking their minimum required distribution. And so when we take a look at this, if we see a lot of young people who are not buying securities, they're not buying stocks and bonds, etc., the baby boomers hold that stuff. The young kids don't want to buy houses. They can't get jobs. Are they going to buy stocks and bonds? No. But then all of a sudden you're finding more and more people who are having to sell because of those minimum required distributions or using those assets to live off of. We had for a long period of time a transition from one generation to the next generation to the next generation. One generation wanted to do better than the next generation. They could find a job. They could get a house. They always seemed to do better. Now all of a sudden we've drawn that line, and we're now at that tipping point where the young generation right now is in deep, deep trouble. How many kids out there that you know have graduated from college can't find a job, are living home, are pouring coffee or waiting table or whatever? Not to demean that particular profession, but if you've been trained with a master's degree or a bachelor's degree in something else, you kind of wonder why you have a $100,000 debt or $80,000 or $125,000 debt, and you could be strapped to that for years and years and years to come. So as we celebrate the Labor Day weekend, it will be very interesting to see what specifically is coming out of these people who have the debate on Wednesday night, and specifically what comes out of Barack Obama. I believe there's only one thing that you can do out there. And I will be very interested to see if any of them hit it, because I'm going to be issuing by the end of the week a very in-depth white paper. It's going to be all over the internet. You'll see it all over the place. It'll be in my column on townhall.com with pieces of it, but it will be all over. It will be interesting to see if somebody grabs it, one of the politicians grab it and run with it, because in analyzing all the things that we can possibly do out there to me is only one thing that you can do to get jobs back. And you'll see as we get at the end of the week, we'll go over that. But it'll be interesting to see if any of these people, and I'm not talking about having these generalized opinions. Well, the president has to get more specific, or, well, we're going to build more roads, we're going to build more bridges. Japan basically paved over every road in Japan in 1989 to 1991, and they still had high unemployment. So we're going to watch this. It's very significant. It wasn't the peak, and it's going away. We hit a very significant milestone on Friday, and it's only going to get worse from here. All right, when we come back, we're going to take a look at what the French, or I should say what the Swiss did, and how it's going to impact you and me. So stick around. We'll be right back.